Ladies and gentlemen, we begin with our next session, Governance Can Technology Deliver More with Less, with special focus on skills and training. Please welcome our chief guest for this session, Mr. Rajiv Pratap Rudy, Honorable Minister of State, Independent Charge, Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. We're also privileged to have with us Mr. Manish Tiwari, former Minister, Information and Broadcasting. I'd like to invite Mr. Chandan Chowdhury, Managing Director, Dassault Systems India Private Limited, Mr. Suman Bose, Managing Director, Siemens PLM Software India. And this, of course, this wonderful session will be moderated by Mr. Rekhy, CEO, KPMG India. So, ladies and gentlemen, as more and more businesses shift to the internet, IT governance has now become critical, vital in fact, in safeguarding them from cyber threats, data compromises, litigation, ensuring compliance laws are met. In fact, the new government has taken up the Digital India initiative. So what are these new laws on e-governance, and how would the e-governance initiative affect India of the future? What are the new policies in place? These are the questions we are asking in this session. Governance Can Technology Deliver More with Less, with a special focus on skills and training. And of course, as all of you know, throughout each and every session that we've had, every panel discussion, every Mindmine exchange, the importance of skilling India as a nation has come up, and how it is critical, it is vital to India's growth. So without that, and without further ado, I hand over to Mr. Rekhy to take the session forward.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister and dignitaries on the dais. I think this session, can you be heard? This session is really important for two reasons. As we know that technology today is possibly the biggest disruptor. It has disrupted business models. It's disrupted government models, how you work, how you deliver services. And I think it's important to understand how you can use technology for better delivery, more efficient delivery, and being able to reach many more people. India, with its vast expanse and its ability to reach out to everybody, is the biggest challenge that we have today. And as we know, in the recent survey at the World Economic Forum, the latest survey at the World Economic Forum, where they did speak about, when we talk of governance, the one word that actually comes to mind is trust. And what is the level of trust that is there for corporates, for governments, for NGOs, for civil society, for leaders, business leaders? It's at an all-time low at the moment, equal to what it was in 2009, at the lowest in 2009. So that's where we start. That's our starting point. And then we say that how does this technology, and when we are talking of this session, we are saying that how does technology actually help you deliver better by, especially in the area of skills, especially because we know that India's population is going to be in 2020. Average age of the Indians are going to be 29 years. This is a golden opportunity, but it's also a challenge. How do you skill these people? How do you train them? How do you educate them? How do you make them employable? In fact, just before this session, we were discussing how do you give practical education to the kids today so that when they come out to the job market, they're actually ready to actually start, because this is the biggest issue that most corporates have. And the other big challenge that we have, that in this digitized world that we have, there are challenges, because computerization doesn't solve every problem. It brings new challenges with it. So are the governments, are the regulators ready to bring in new regulations? As we know, when globalization took place a few years back, all the regulations were far behind globalization. Today we have things like BEPS coming in, talking of this transfer pricing, who should tax, where should the goods be taxed. Countries around the world are struggling with it. And today with internet, last session I saw Kunal there, e-commerce which is overtaken. Where does this take us? I mean, how is these, where are the goods going to be taxed? How are they going to be taxed? Who's going to pay the tax? Who's going? I mean, there are these huge issues, how the regulators are going to monitor it. We talk of multi-brand retail. So what is the e-commerce portal? I mean, these are questions which need to be actually answered and dealt with head on. So I would request the Honorable Minister, if you can start the session, kick the session off with how do you believe skilling India and using technology in helping skills take it forward from there? We would like to have your views, sir.
Thank you very much, distinguished guests and panelists. Just wondering where to start when you talk about digital and using the digital platform and skills. But before I proceed there, I must just tell you the challenge which we have today. And since I am there as a minister now, because for the first time in independent India, someone decided to create a ministry for skill development and entrepreneurship. It's not that skills have not been happening in this country, skills have been happening in this country. But the Prime Minister did think that this needs to be addressed separately. And I think when we get back to why do we need to address skills and how do we go ahead is, if you put some world figures across, if you see in China, with a population of around 1.45 billion, almost 45% of the population, the workforce is skilled. If you look at UK, about 68% of the workforce is skilled. Japan, about 80% of the workforce is skilled. Germany, about 74% of the workforce is skilled. Korea, for that matter, 96% of the workforce is skilled. And when you talk about the skilled workforce in India, it's just meager 2%. And if you're talking about Make in India, you're talking about any other major initiative of the government, it will actually not happen unless until we create a skill in India. Now, if this is the challenge, where do we start from? And if you look at the GDP today, most of the skills which we have, as it is distributed, is the services sector, which accounts about 60% of the GDP, and industrial manufacturing would be around 25%, in which manufacturing would be about 12.5%, and rest would be the agriculture or the third sector. Now, in this services sector, we have a huge partnership with the skills, and a lot of this non-manufacturing training which takes place has been done in a big way. But when you go to the manufacturing side, which is actually would be required to create wealth, where investments will come in, you require large pool of skilled manpower, and that cannot happen unless until we have this platform correct. So seeing these challenges, and even if you, whatever kind of skill which you're talking about in this country, the basic skills, because something which is not been there in this country, and we are talking about to create the national standards and the national occupation standards, and the government has plans to align every education of skills under the National Skills Qualification Framework. Now, this is something which is absolutely not been heard much about. And when we talk about the qualification packs, when we talk about the national occupation standards, when we talk about the job roles, and today in Government of India, when we talk about skills, there are 24 ministries handling skills, spending about 7,000-8,000 crores, and everyone is doing their skills in their own way. So we required a partnership with the private sector. We required a partnership where the private sector would create the syllabus for the demand of the industry. And as we go ahead, soft skills has to be an integrated component of all the qualification pack which has to be created in this country. Now, in absence of a QP without a soft skill is something which cannot happen actually. So the basics have to come, and that is why we are talking about Digital India, a platform where we can acquire all that knowledge to position it for skills is the biggest challenge today. So between what you are discussing and what the challenges we have in front, I think a great synergy is required in this sector.
Thank you, sir. Actually, when we look at growth of GDP, two things actually help a GDP growth. One is capitalization of demographics, and exactly the point that you made, that how do we, all the demographics that India have, which I've told you the advantage of it, but once this gets capitalized, it helps in GDP growth. And the other one is improving productivity, which we need to work on. And can technology help in improving productivity and taking us to the next level? So with this, I will go to Manish Tiwari to request him if he can enlighten us a bit on how technology can deliver more with less.
Thank you very much. You know, I was fairly struck by the relationship that was sought to be established between regulation and the internet. Possibly the biggest technological innovation which has taken place in the last 2.5 or 3 decades has been the genesis / the creation of the internet. And it is possibly one of those innovations made by humankind about which possibly humankind understands even lesser as it mutates. The internet today was perhaps the most audacious experiment in anarchy, and it has succeeded. It today represents the largest ungoverned space on planet Earth. Never before, and that's where the whole discourse around net neutrality becomes important. Never before in the history of humankind has so much power concurrently resided on so many fingertips around the world. There's more data which is created every 2 days than possibly from the beginning of civilization till about the turn of the last millennium. So essentially what you have is a tale of 2 civilizations, a physical civilization which evolved over the centuries and a virtual civilization which is evolving. And the danger is that we try and project the laws, the rules, and the regulations of the physical world into the virtual civilization. And that can become the biggest inhibitor to the march of technology, to the ability of technology to be able to deliver goods and services in real time, to be able to further empower the citizen to make the entire paradigm of governance more demand-driven rather than supply-driven. Of course, it has its own downsides also, which we've not paid any attention to. You know, for example, at what point in time does a cyber attack really become an act of war in the physical space? For example, if the Stuxnet virus or the Flame virus, which destroyed the Iranian centrifuges, would have led to a massive physical retaliation by Iran, where would have that left that part of the world? The reason why I'm raising all these questions is because increasingly, as you will look at the world going forth from 2015 to 2025, this is going to be the fundamental platform on which life is going to be transacted. Not only business, but life is going to be transacted. And so therefore, we in India, since we have a large population of young people, the moderator here talked about the demographic dividend, should really very seriously think that how do we leverage this creation in order to make that technological quantum jump which can actually put us into the first world.
Thank you, Manish. I think Manish has raised some point regarding the challenges of technology. I was reading somewhere that, sorry about that, this combat warfare is going to be a thing of the past. All the warfare that is going to take place is going to be cyber warfare, and countries are going to attack each other through the cyber world, because today what we see, I mean, how many of us have even ever, you know, you take a simple thing, your bank account, I mean, everything is on the net. If tomorrow the entire banking system gets destroyed, you won't even know what your balance is. Simple. I mean, I'm not getting to a very complicated kind of situation. And then if you take complicated situations where they actually destroy the very system and fabric of a country using cyber warfare, I think it's something that we really need to sit up and think about it as to internet, while it's good, technology, while it's good, what are the challenges of adoption of technology, and are we adopting technology too fast? Are regulations keeping pace with technology? I think we'll go to Suman to ask him some questions around this. Suman, if you can enlighten everybody around this.
Sure. I agree with Mr. Tiwari's point that we are trying to put in the laws of the last century or the millenniums before into the new space without realizing what the impact it could be. But take a step back. I'll just first connect maybe a dot from Mr. Rudy's statement. If India has to be skilled, there is no other way than using technology. I mean, you can't skill 100 million people by building classrooms and having physical teachers. You have to look at alternate space. So similarly, if you have to take food into the farthest corner of the country, etc. And the most important thing is, there are very few global models that are available in the world that we can take and we can adopt and we can say, here we go. Because no one has the challenges or the kind of challenges that we as a country are going to have today and tomorrow. So in 2025, if you're standing in India, those challenges will be exacerbated and they will be more unique. Talking about it, therefore, the challenges, coming to the challenges per part of it. First of all, how much connectivity is needed? And that's a personal choice. How much of your life you want to put it onto the net, and a personal choice. I mean, there have been studies coming out from, one of the studies was from my alma mater in Harvard, and it came out and said people are actually postponing their depression because they always feel connected. So the human psychology of coming out of depression is getting defeated because the medical science is not working because people are postponing. So kind of, there are personal challenges, but the basic challenge is, if I'm running a corporation, do I have to have everything? Like you said, if the bank data gets, in the same World Economic Forum, there was a statement that the Cisco chairman made. He said, there are two kinds of people in the world, one who knows they have been hacked and one who doesn't. So all of us, in a way, are very, very vulnerable at this point of time. So and I think the governing laws that will come in is the same way the governing laws in the medieval century transformed city-states or fortresses of prosperity, and everything outside was bad land, into concept of a country, concept of, so you will start seeing a lot of personal regulation will come in, personal discipline will come in. Maybe our generation has missed it because we are the switch generation. But I'm sure the next generation and the generation thereafter would be far more regulated themselves. And I think some of these threats doesn't need an external regulation, but it needs more internal discipline and internal regulation. So companies will be internally regulating themselves. Individuals will be internally regulating themselves, and I trust that would be the model go forward, rather than saying somebody else need to come and do a regulation and maybe end up creating an Orwellian society.
I think, Suman, you're right. It's the new generation, and it's 29 years old, the younger people who are going to determine India's future. And they are all going to be tech savvy or digital savvy. And the way we consume any media or any material is going to change. Because even now, the latest report which came out, that out of all media watching, 42% of the time actually gets spent on smartphones. And television comes number 2 after that. So I think smartphones is going to overtake, and as smartphones get cheaper, it's going to get into more hands, and it's going to reach. There is going to be solar mobile chargers for places where electricity is not reached. So I think life is changing quite a lot and is changing very rapidly. And we, in the last session, I heard somebody ask about the rural, and we can see the rural-urban divide on this digital or digitization, which is actually fast expanding, and actually rural is also becoming a fast adopter of this. And places like Kenya, places like Africa are standing examples to us, how they have reached banking through M-Pesa in Kenya, and how they have used various other methods of taking it. So I think there are learnings from this. But when we look at ourselves in 2025, and where do we see ourselves? So Chandan, may I request you if you can enlighten us, how is this digitization going to affect the world of life sciences? In what way will it impact it?
Yeah. So I would like to give you a few examples. So I think technology is going to really, if we are able to leverage it, is going to really accelerate the growth of our economy. Now let me give you an example from life sciences. Today there are projects that I'm aware of which is going on in United States, for example, when a patient will go to a doctor with a heart complaint, the doctor is going to take the digital image of the patient and would do diagnosis on the digital heart, because a digital heart, you can afford to cut it, slice it, smash it, but you make sure that you understand the problem, and you could probably administer a bypass surgery on the digital heart, understand the impact before you do it physically. Let me give you one more example. Now, you might have heard about the Solar Impulse 2, which landed in India on 11th of March in Ahmedabad. It was also there in Benares. Now, that whole aircraft uses only solar power. And you find that scientists first designed it digitally. They built it digitally. And then they took off with the digital aircraft to really understand, does it work right? So let me cite another example. So if you look at our Prime Minister spoke on 15th of August last year about zero defect and zero effect. Now, if we have to really implement this, it will be extremely important that you have skilled manpower, which is familiar with technologies which enable you to really make it. So you find today the manufacturing industries which are leaders, they are actually designing it virtually, manufacturing it virtually, building it virtually, testing it virtually, seeing it before they make it physically. So we find all these trends now are actually getting implemented also in life sciences. You have projects like, how do you create a digital human? How do you induce a digital cancerous tissue to simulate the phenomenon of cancer? And once you have understood it, how do you induce a digital drug to understand, can you stop the propagation of cancer? Thank you.
So today we are talking of direct benefit transfer using the Aadhaar card and the new bank accounts that got opened and reducing that. 2025, when I stand back and look, today we also talk of 3D printing coming in. People are making guns, making body parts, making aerospace parts on 3D, using 3D. I mean, one never thought that a printer could actually create manufacturing. When I look at 2025, we could have 4D coming in. And we are talking of direct benefit transfer. We can talk of direct benefit delivery, where actually these body parts and implants can actually be delivered at the remotest part of India at a very differentiated price. And I think this is where technology can actually take us, and this is where the India story, which the reach is so far, can actually go. Now that we have had each of the panel members give their views, can I throw this thing open to the audience to ask questions that you may have? Please say your name and please ask your question as brief as possible. Thank you. Yeah, first here.
The way you pointed out digital technology, life sciences. Recently there was a information about in Russia, one doctor is replacing head to another body. And same thing is happening. Recently there was a Bloomberg, mayor of New York. He said he has improved the average life of ordinary citizen 3 years just by cutting road accidents. And recently one doctor said next life will be 80 years, will be like 40 years. Lifespan will be increasing. So this way our lives will be changing a lot. How we are prepared to this type of situation? Say our roads are full of traffic, and same thing will happen to human. There will be a huge crowd, population.
My question is to the Minister, Rajiv ji, that Prime Minister had a very great vision for skilling India, like Digital India, Cleaning India, Make in India, or 100 smart cities. And everywhere skill is required. Now, your challenge is converting from 2% to say 100% or achieving at least 50% by 2019. May I ask that are we doing or the government is doing anything towards the certification, accreditations of the skill training which is being conducted by 22 ministries and the different institutions? That is the first question. The second small question is that we have got 12,000 IITs, NITs and other institutions where the apprenticeship training is taking place. Are we conjoining them to this? And the last question is that the maximum workforce lies in non-organized sector. Are we thinking those are uneducated to make them when they become skilled, how we can provide the education certificate so that they can go to the ITIs, then to the diploma, from diploma to the engineering, and they become the part of it, because we have to compete the world, because young India will be providing services across the world after 2020, and that is a challenge. So what are the GOI, Government of India initiatives towards this?
Thank you very much. I wish I had a special session where I could have addressed each and every issue in a more elaborate way. We are moving fast on all these three things which we have talked, and I think you know a good deal when you are asking these questions. Number one, we are talking about certification and assessment and certification. One thing which is now been made mandatory in all organizations, and even if we require a statute because it's through a cabinet order, that we must all now know what is a national skills qualification framework, which is from entry level 1 to 10. 1 to 4 could be supervisory from entry level. 1 could be person who is not very literate. 4 would be a supervisory. And 9 and 10 could be a CMD of an organization or a chairman of a group. So everything, the Government of India in December 2013, when this NSQF came, all certifications in this country, whether it is NCVT, which was from Ministry of Labor, or certification from HRD, which was NCEQVT, they have all been superseded by NSQF, which is the basic standardization in the country which has to come into existence. In next 3 years, all government organizations which are getting grants from Government of India have to necessarily align themselves to the process of NSQF, other grants would not be available. Beyond that, by 2019, all government jobs, unless until you have a certified skill certificate, you would not be eligible to come into a government job. Now, all these things are being moved, and for doing this, when you're talking about assessment, 33 sector skill councils, which are the pivot for all certification. Now, this is the first time, and I must say that the previous government did start it, and we are trying to streamline and standardize it, that all from now onwards, everything what you actually, all these standards have to be put under that framework, and 2019 onwards, and even if a statute, the sector skill councils for the first time in democracy, that we have gone beyond the government, the sector skill councils, which are led by the industry bodies, which are headed by the industry bodies, would design the syllabus, which we call the qualification packs, and these QPs would be certified by them, and the whole syllabus, which in a normal word, would be created by the industry as and what is required by the industry. So there is no government interference, and the syllabus for training is to be created by the sector skill councils, which is becoming a nodal body. You talked about something else, 2 more issues. ITIs. A major decision has been taken in the government. There are 12,000, not IITs, we're talking about ITIs. You mentioned about IITs, it's ITIs. A major decision has been taken by the government a week ago, that the entire 12,000 ITIs, which exist about 8,000 in the private sector, 4,000 in government sector, it has been decided to migrate them under the Ministry of Skill Development, just to align all these courses what you're talking about. And there was a third question. That has also been migrated. The vertical of DGET, which was under the Ministry of Labor, under interventions by the Prime Minister, this whole vertical of Ministry of Labor has been shifted to the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, which is a major initiative. And the biggest initiative is that all these bodies which exist as training institutions, they have to align with NSQF, and the old syllabus would be changed. And once that is changed, even private bodies are going to partner these ITIs in a big way to create that huge manpower which we are talking about.
Yeah, okay.
My question is to Minister Rudy. I'm from BMN Munjal University, a student over there, BCom honors. So, how is we have seen individuals in the government like the Prime Minister and many of the tech-savvy ministers adopting new technologies and such things. But the government itself is fairly less advanced in adopting the internet efficiently. It is torturous to go through government website trying to find schemes and other things, and trying to find information through government websites itself. And the government had created a portal called the EBIS portal, and that itself was not very not very user friendly. So how do you think the government can increase its speed in adapting new technologies and adapting and making the whole experience of using a government website or a government application more user friendly? Thank you.
Well, it's a very valid question, and that's why the Prime Minister has talked about creating Digital India platform, which is one of the most, it's an initiative which has been on, but we are trying to focus on it. And when you say government systems which are not good enough, I understand it's a challenge, but a lot of private bodies have got into and partnered the governments to create all these websites and all this access platform. And the 9 pillars of Digital India which has been chalked out, it talks about broadband highways, universal access to phones, public internet access program, e-governance, reforming government through technology, e-Kranti, which is electronic delivery of services, information for all, electronics manufacturing, IT for jobs and early. Now it's a whole integrated approach. We have achieved enough. It's a $100 billion industry and something which we are proud about. I think much yet has to be done, and I would say that what I hear and what I participate, much initiatives have been taken in this field. So I would agree that there could be places which would not be as good as what you find in a private enterprises website, but I won't say that actually government is lagging behind much. I would not exactly agree to that.
Richard, since we're on skills, I'm going to just push this a little bit. Sure. General Shami Mehta just reminded me that the skills mission was actually launched in CII in 2004. And Mr. Chidambaram, your minister at that point in time, had allocated 50 crores in the budget. How far did you think, as a government, you were able to push this in those 10 years? Where did we reach? And as a follow-on for the minister, what kind of money are you willing to put behind this program? The need for skills? I mean, I don't think it's a debate any longer. It's
Manish, can I carry on, Manish? Manish? Well, it was in 2004, 2009 policy which was announced by Mr. Chidambaram, and that was the time 2 agencies were created, NSDA and NSDC, which were the 2, and Mr. Ramadurai was made the chairman of both organizations. He's a man of repute. He's done a great job. And I would admit that this work had actually started. And in 2009 policy, they had decided to train 5 crore. The target was 500 million people to be trained, for which they talked about till from 2000, in the 12th plan, till 2017, they wanted to train 5 crore people. And from 2017 to 2022, they wanted to train another 45 crore. Actually, those targets could not be achieved, but nonetheless, something had begun there. So, so I think it was a good beginning, and it was indeed a good beginning, what you said. The second question you said was related to?
How much resources are you willing to put behind
this?
I'll
just put a small figure. That is what I wanted to come to. You see, when you're talking about 500 million is a figure which possibly I have not been able to come how we got this figure. But today, if you look at the economy and this 550 million workforce which you're talking about, 54% is in agriculture. For a while, even if we leave this workforce, which about 24% is migrating towards other sectors of the economy, we are left with around 250 million people who need to be trained immediately. Out of this 250 million people, 1 million people join the workforce every year. That comes to about 300 million people which you would have in next 5 years. About 250 to 260, 265. Today, when you talk about cost of training, out of every 100 people who have to be trained, 30 people are capable of paying for themselves. So it leaves you with 70 people who have to be trained, and these are the people who cannot afford training. Because classroom education has taken place for 10 years, where the government has spent money, but we have not actually gone. And what we are talking that education is very important. 10 years of school education is very important, but if 10 years of school education does not make you good enough for being employed, and 10 weeks of training can make you employable, that is what we are talking about. So 10 years of education, not good enough, but 10 weeks of training can make you employable, and that is what we are looking at. If you look at the figures, we come to around 22 crore people, 220 million to 250 million people, which we need to train. For this, at an average, with the capex involved, you require 20,000 rupees per head to be trained at an average. We have gone through it. So you require about 5 lakh crores in next 5 years. That means a lakh of crore every year. And that is the challenge because we have spent in last 55, 60 years, few lakh crores, a lakh of crore every year on education. But actually this is one mission so we require a huge figure of around 5 lakh crores. At the moment I have got about 1,500 crores. Other ministers are spending about 8,000 crores. We need a mandated support from the CSR, but still I feel I'm trying my best to create that. As we had the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, we can think of something like, which was done in 2003. We need to, because we are lagging 60 years later. We're 60 years behind. We may be looking for something like Sarv Kaushal Abhiyan, but we require huge amount of money as far as skill is concerned. And I actually, as of date, I'm trying to flag the issues. How do we move by the next budget? Because the first time this ministry has been created, how do we move to the next budget to see how much resources I can mob to create this kind of training? So it's a very good question. It's a challenging question. Manish may like to add on to it.
I think there is a fundamental dichotomy. I fully appreciate the need to have a standalone skilling ministry. But the fact is that you have to institutionalize the skilling mindset into your education system itself. Because if we are trying to run this gauntlet, that 10 years of education is not good enough, and 10 weeks of skilling is good enough to make you employable, I think there's something fundamentally wrong with the manner in which we are doing our education. So therefore, till the time you do not integrate skills, or at least a culture of skills, whereby people or students start believing that while acquiring education, they need to acquire a certain skill which can make them employable, a secondary skill or a tertiary skill. I don't think this standalone paradigm will work. And where is the budgetary headroom? I mean, if you look at the budget numbers, the fact is that on health, education, all the other parameters, you are lagging far behind, even the other developing countries. The only headroom that you have in the budget is to cut from defense. And you'll only cut from defense if you're able to normalize with Pakistan and China. So therefore, with all the good intentions, I do not think that there is headroom available in the budget. And number two, having a standalone platform, well, it may work in the short run, but how much eventually is it really going to be efficacious, divorced from the entire education paradigm? I think it's still an open-ended question.
A small aspect which possibly I couldn't address. When he talks about school education and skilling, we may have missed, but now we are talking about, meanwhile, this part what I have talked is what is an immediate target. But in school education, the National Skills Qualification Framework has decided from 9 to class 12. We are creating a syllabus which will be adopted by schools. And in some of the schools in Haryana, which actually has started this project, class 9, you have 600 hours of classroom education and 400 hours of skill education. Class 10th, you have 500 hours of classroom education, 500 hours of skill, and gradually you keep on going up where your classroom education comes down, and with partnership with the industry, the skill education is going up. And this is called the credit framework which you are talking. By +2, you can move laterally out, have that certification, work 5 years in industry, and the other aspect which you should become familiar is called the recognition of prior learning. For 5 years working in industry, and if you get a certification for that, you can move back to a graduation or a BSc for a formal education and go to doctorate. So, but these things should have started long time back. We have started it now, nothing to get disappointed, but this activity which Manish is suggesting, some framework was existing, we are trying to streamline it. So this credit framework of education, what Manish mentioned, is in place now and will take a couple of years while we move ahead for a lateral and a vertical growth plan as far as it's concerned. Thank you.
We can see the passion in the room. I'm sorry, we are just running late. Okay, one last question to the lady.
Thank you very much. I have to be heard because I represent the rural sector of India, larger majority which I think needs greater focus than it is receiving. I'm glad to hear you point out, Mr. Rekhy and Mr. Tiwari, you did mention bringing skill in at the school level, and thank you, Mr. Rudy, for speaking about it. But I think a lot more needs to be done. Can we bring in, and is the government thinking of bringing in the concept of teaching arts and crafts so that we can create entrepreneurship and we can enhance the talent in a child while the child is still in school? And the reason I'm speaking about this is because I'm a Sarpanch from Rajasthan, and I've noticed that the quality of education in the rural sector is beyond dismal, and nothing at all is being done about that. So when we're talking about creating the talent pool, given the demographic that we speak about that India is going to have, we need to do a lot better. And with education just not even providing basic curriculum, for example, 11th and 12th grade students are only taught Hindi literature, Sanskrit literature, and geography in my village. So what kind of future are we providing for these children? In addition to which, you spoke about skilling with 10 weeks of programs, and Mr. Bose, perhaps you could chip in here. Can we look at bringing in the concept of community colleges, where you're not only providing, and this is different from polytechnic schools that we have in India, can we look at providing short-term courses of 10 days and maybe 2 weeks, and open to all age groups? And the reason I'm saying this, a case in point, is because I met an American lady who is 70 years of age, who through one of these 10 days program learned how to weave baskets. And as of today, she is now 75 years of age. She skins the raw material, dyes it by herself in her own house, and sells her baskets for more than $1,000 a piece. And we have amazing basket weavers in rural India. What can we do to ensure that that skill set is enhanced and improved so that we can provide them better economic standards and ensure that we create a better future for India?
Congratulations, you are a Sarpanch, and that's amazing. And you talk, the first aspect which you mentioned was about this school education. That is what we are talking about, the cognitive and the non-cognitive skills which has to come to the school education, right from class, primary, and beyond that. So that aspect we have started addressing, and I'm sure in times to come. Another aspect which the whole country must know, and what you have said is possibly an example which is not known to many of us. The state government of Chhattisgarh has established 37 livelihood colleges, and they exist in the same format as what you are talking. We have to go and see how they are working. It's not the government of India has started doing it. There are many state governments which are actually doing a very good job. When you're talking about this 37 community colleges, and this particular state has an act, a state legislation which says right to skill training. And anyone from the age group of 15 to 45 can walk up to the district magistrate and give an application, and the state has mandated that this man has to be provided with training. We are already moving in many states like this, and I think there are many good examples. What we are talking is bringing all these good practices across the country to meet what you are talking, and I'm sure everyone will, at a given point of time, come together to achieve what you have been talking about. Thank you.
I think we will now need to end it. We are really late. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for your time. Mr. Manish Tiwari, thank you very much for your time. Chandan, thank you. Suman, thank you very much.
I've taken, I'm sorry.
I think the skill seems to be the passion of the day. Thank you very much.
A passionate discussion, ladies and gentlemen. A big round of applause for all our esteemed panelists. I would request you, gentlemen, to please remain on the stage because we would like to present mementos to you. So I would like to invite Mr. Sunil Kant Munjal to do the honors to present the mementos. Could we also have Mr. Sunil Kaushal, CEO, Standard Chartered Bank. Ladies and gentlemen, please, a big round of applause. Truly a wonderful panel discussion. Welcome, sir. This session was presented by Dassault Systems India Private Limited.